All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at activity 134 called CAD modeling skills in the IED curriculum. And I'm going to be working through steps numbers 1 through 6 in the activity. And as we work through, we're going to explore some sketching skills, and I'm going to reference the steps from the curriculum. And if you're following along, I'll reference those numbers and steps as we go through. All right, one thing we'll do is in my data panel, I've already got a CAD modeling skills folder set up in my IED folder, so I'm going to go ahead and save this by hitting the save button. We will call this first part sketching skills, and I'll hit the save, and you'll see it'll populate into your data panel. I'm going to go ahead and close that down. Number 3 says we're going to create a new component, and we're going to create a new sketch. So here I'm going to say new component. Under the component name, we'll call this plate, because that's going to be what we're working with. And I'm just going to go ahead and say OK and make sure that activate box is checked. That will make sure that you've activated this component and not the top level of the file. So you want to make sure you're just on this component. I'm going to say create sketch, and I'm going to choose the front plane. As we move through number 4, and number 4 here says we're going to sketch a 4-inch vertical by 6-inch horizontal rectangle, and we're going to use a center rectangle based off of the origin. As I move my mouse out, I can put 4, press the tab key, put 6 in, hit enter, and here is my rectangle. So as I go along, I'm going to be adding a few things, some polygons into this shape. In order to do that, I'm going to choose the create option, and I'm going to go down to polygon. There's going to be 3 options in here. We're going to use all 3 to demonstrate. We got, first off, just a little note, is we got circumscribed polygons and inscribed polygons. So a circumscribed polygon means that, and you can tell by the little icons here, is that in a circumscribed polygon, circumscribed kind of relates to geometry in terms of circumference. That means the polygon would show up on the outside of a circle, and the circle would dictate the radius. So what happens is all those sides are on the outside of the circle, but all those sides are tangent to that circle, as opposed to an inscribed polygon where you end up having a circle being drawn on the outside of the circle. So the polygon is inscribed, or as I kind of remember it, as inside the circle, and all the points are coming out to touch the edges of the circle. And when we draw those, we'll see those work. So I'm going to choose circumscribed polygon. In number 5, we're going to add 3 polygons. 5A says we're going to add a circumscribed pentagon using the radius of 0.35 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place that here. I'm going to kind of stay off these diagonals just so that way we don't get an automatic constraint be put. But if I click on the center, like drawing a circle, and here I can set what radius I want. So I want 0.35. I'm going to press the tab key, and I can put 5 in there. So you can see there the circle's on the inside, and all the sides are tangent to that circle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit enter. There's that pentagon. The second one, we're going to be looking at an inscribed polygon. And again, I'm going to kind of stay off these diagonals just that way we don't get an automatic constraint. It's going to be a 1/4 inch. It's going to be 6, so I can press tab over on 6, and you can see the circle's on the outside of the polygon this time. All the points are touching to the outside or to the circle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, the last one, we're going to create a equilateral triangle. That polygon is going to be an edge polygon. I'm going to start down here and click 1.25 on the side length. I hit enter, and then when I punch that number in, it's going to ask me what side, how many number of sides I want, and I can either put it, based on my mouse cursor, which direction I want it to go in. I'm going to go to the inside of the plate, press 3, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, I'm going to move that dimension over just a little bit. And now, as I take a look at number 6, they want us to place some geometric and dimensional constraints to locate our polygons. Before we do that, I'm going to choose the line tool. And I'm going to go over to the sketch palette, and I want to toggle on the construction line. And what I'm going to do is along the top here I'm going to find, along this top line, I want to find where I hit the midpoint of the line. So here, I'm going to click once I see that midpoint, and I'm going to go down until I reach and have a vertical line. If you did that correctly, you'll have a fully constrained line. It'll be black. Now I want to make sure I turn off the construction toggle, so that way if I go to draw anything else, I'm not going to have to worry about that. All right, as I take a look here, a few of the constraints they want is they want the center of the pentagon is on a vertical line through the center of the rectangle, and they want one side of the polygon to be horizontal and it to be about half an inch from above the center of the rectangle. So I'm going to kind of work through those two steps simultaneously, maybe not in the order of A first and B second, but I'm going to kind of work through that. I'm going to go ahead and do horizontal. I'm going to choose the bottom of the pentagon. I'm going to make that there. In order to place this, I'm going to choose the coincident constraint. I'm going to, along this bottom line, I'm going to hold my shift key. And if I hold my shift key, I can find the midpoint of that line. It'll be marked with an X, and it has a triangle next to it to note that that is the midpoint. That's what Fusion is telling you. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to choose this line, and it's going to move that over based upon that. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a sketch dimension from the center to the line, 0.5, and that's going to fully constrain this. So one note here on this activity is if you try to use the center point of this pentagon and maybe use a horizontal vertical with the origin, this will show up as still having blue lines. It will not show as being fully constrained. So the method I just showed you is the way that would go through and get you to have that. Not really sure the reason why. So it may be just functionality within Fusion, but it is fully constrained when you do that because it doesn't move. There's no movement in the sketch lines, but they do still appear as blue, as opposed to when we do it this way, we get black lines. All right, letters C and D and E, it looks like we're going to make sure that we're going to go to a parallel constraint. I'm going to choose one side of the hexagon and choose the 6-inch side of the rectangle. And then I want to make sure that the center of the hexagon is coincident with the diagonal. So here's where I can go ahead and choose coincident. I can choose the center of the hexagon, and then I'm going to choose the center of the diagonal, and that'll put that right there. The last step is to add a ½ inch measurement from the top of the plate to the hexagon, and that'll be at 0.5, and you'll see that it'll move it up along the diagonal because we're making sure that center point is right on the diagonal. Letters F and G will go through and say we want to go through and have one corner of our equilateral triangle coincident. So I'll choose this. I'm going to choose the corner of the triangle and with the corner of the plate. And then they want the center point of the triangle equilateral triangle coincident with the diagonal of the rectangle. So again, keeping coincident, choosing the center, choosing the diagonal, and there we go. So now our sketch is going to look like just like what we have on the picture in the curriculum, and we can go ahead and start looking at the next section, which will be using sketch patterns and trying out some different steps there. So there we'll go through and finish up steps 1 through 6.